What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Power Button Podcast, episode 36. I am your co-host, Josh Meany, and who the hell are you?
I'm your other co-host, Darren Badmouth Beasley, and today we have one hell of a debate. One hell of a debate.
Want to tell them what it is?
Well, okay, I shouldn't say one hell of a debate because the debate hasn't happened yet, but we have one
Yeah, it
hell
might
of a...
end very quick.
we have one hell of a topic, really.
I just want to say it was a hard one. When you brought it up, I'm pretty confident in my choice, but there was so many good choices. It was very hard to really just pick one. So that's what I think will make this so interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many different levels to what it is. But go ahead and tell them what we're debating.
So it is, what character in the Avengers had the biggest impact? In the MCU in general, like who affected the world the most?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel as though a lot of people want to jump immediately to Iron Man. I feel like that's
exactly where I went.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "Oh, Tony Stark. What the fuck is he asking me right now?"
Right, of course.
Then I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and I came up with a couple different ones before I got to mine.
Yeah, same here. And so, and maybe if we have time, we can get to the honorable mentions. Now, okay, so I picked. Okay, so actually, let me say this, right? I picked Star-Lord, but I really mean, like, obviously, Star-Lord by himself doesn't really exist. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy with an emphasis on Star-Lord.
And he's technically not an Avenger.
Huh?
He's technically not an Avenger. He's a Guardian of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
All right, so you lost. Shut it down.
Yeah, I already lost.
No, he is an Avenger, though.
So that's my pick. And what's your pick?
And my pick is Captain Marvel.
All right. And
I went from Tony. I was thinking Thor. I was thinking Nick Fury. And, Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
So what's your reason that you picked Peter Quill? I'm really interested because he didn't even pop up when I was thinking about different people. He didn't even pop up in my mind.
Didn't pop up?
Not at all. He never popped up at all.
Well,
so
Doc,
I'm really
it's actually
interested
pretty big.
to know why you picked Peter Quill.
Now, I haven't flushed this out entirely, but I flushed it out to some extent, and I don't think you're gonna like it, but I think it's like I think it's pretty damn important.
Yeah.
So Sir Quilliam, he essentially gets. It's not that he does it, but him being the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy means a lot. Like it is his ship at the end of the day, even though I know they joke around a lot about who's gonna tell him where to go, where, or whatever. But at the end of the day, he does decide what to do and where to go. And basically, where the Guardians ever end up is really a reflection of Quill's guidance, right? And the first movie and in the second one, he was actually clever. Like, he was actually intelligent and clever. They made him stupid in Endgame, but even in Infinity War, I mean, he goes into a room with Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Iron Man, and that fight ends with his gun at Spider-Man's head. So it's not like he's completely useless, you know what I mean? He's actually on his P's and Q's.
Nobody in the Guardians are useless at all.
Right.
We're all,
and so I guess to name some things off, number one, they wouldn't have the Power Stone, no, they ended up losing the Power Stone. Oh, well, you know what? I kind of messed this up.
Well, he brought it to the Collector, so I don't know why I'm helping you, but like I get what you're saying. Well, if it wasn't for him, Ronan would have ended up having it, or maybe Thanos would have killed Ronan, took it, and then it would already be with Thanos. But because of Peter, it did get taken to the Collector.
Right.
Which Thanos eventually did go there and get it. But one of them would have it. Somebody very bad would have it a lot sooner.
Right. And I think, well, kind of like what I was saying the other day, like, what if Ronan used it to kill Thanos? Who knows what he would have done after that? You don't even know what Ronan would have done before he killed Thanos. You know, would he have destroyed that planet that they were on if he got a chance to put it in his hammer? I don't know. There's that, and then the other one is that technically, and this is the one that's just aggravating because I was just thinking about it. Technically, he prevented like I don't know how many worlds or planets from being destroyed because his dad, the living planet or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
um,
Ego.
ego. I mean, how many worlds was he gonna destroy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, imagine like Quill is one of the ones that could actually stop him, that could actually like fight him, seeing how he's got that inheritance, that power from him.
Yeah.
Um, and that is like I think that's a point that a lot of people don't think about. It's like he really did.
Yeah, no, that's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
and it's annoying to think of that because that movie never sold me on the idea that he was such a pivotal role in saving the universe before Thanos, right?
Hmm.
Before Thanos had the Infinity Gauntlet, before all that, Quill already did such a lot. He did so much to prevent all these worlds and universes from dying. Um, Again, not completely single-handedly. Like I said, this is kind of like
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Who had the
Um,
biggest effect on the MCU though? It's an
right.
interesting reason to pick him.
And well, there's
Um,
a little bit more too. Now when they're flying around, Thor, uh, pretty much. I mean, obviously, everything from Infinity War onward, we don't know if it would even be possible if Quill and the Guardians didn't stumble upon him in space.
hmm,
They found him in that debris, and that's
yeah.
how they got back to. Well, that's how essentially Thor got the Stormbreaker. Like Stormbreaker is Groot's arm. It's like, and he would have never been able to even get Stormbreaker or get back on his feet or orientate himself. Thor, I mean, if he didn't land on that window and then that sort of reintroduced him back into the MCU so he can get back on his P's and Q's. And
Yep.
obviously that changed the whole fate of Endgame. Like that changed everything, and that falls squarely on Quill making the decision to fly in that area, albeit not expecting to get Thor, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I'd say Thor, yeah, just had obviously everything Thor did in Endgame and in Infinity War. I don't think would be possible if it weren't for the Guardians getting him. You know.
You really think so? You don't think Thor they were finding any way out of that whatsoever? You
Um,
don't think any? Because I disagree with that completely. I don't think that none of that would have been possible if that obviously the Guardians definitely helped in that situation.
yeah.
I still feel like Thor would have found a way to still get on track to what ended up happening. Him getting Stormbreaker and everything like that. Like, yeah, they're out floating in space, but I mean, he's fucking Thor. You know what I mean? Is he going to be stuck on a ship in space? In space, like
Well, the ship blew up, so he's just floating around.
that's true. But
I
he
mean,
would have woke up
what I'm
eventually.
saying is he's floating around in the middle of nowhere, and he doesn't have Mjolnir. He's just
Hmm.
floating in space. So I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
I
I
mean,
think that he definitely would have.
yeah,
Yeah, I think he definitely would have woken up at some point. You know what I mean? And then he would have got to a planet somehow, and then went on with the same kind of journey. I think that's more of a coincidence than instead of crashing into a meteor or a planet, even he ended up hitting the ship,
yeah. But I
the
but I
Milano.
think I think that's quite an important distinction to make. I think that if he did land on a planet, things would have turned out completely different. Completely different. I mean, he
I
clearly
think the
could.
road to what he ended up getting would have turned out completely different, but I still think he would have ended up getting Stormbreaker.
Yeah, but how would he have gotten Stormbreaker?
Taking the same path, he would have had to go to that guy to forge it.
Right,
And yeah, he could really end up doing all that stuff still, even if he didn't end up meeting the Guardians.
but it
He
was
was the one
Groot's.
who told them about Stormbreaker.
Right, but I don't think that. So the Groot making the handle for Stormbreaker, I don't know how we could say that Stormbreaker could have been created without that. I don't, because Thor clearly, I mean, he was gonna die, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, was there real? Yeah, I mean, it's all circumstance too, because we don't know. But like, was that the only thing we could have used to make the handle for Stormbreaker? Homeboy
No,
didn't have any handles. You know
no,
what I mean?
no. He could have. No, I'm saying like there could have been other handles for sure, but I'm saying
Yeah.
Thor. clearly doesn't know that. Like Thor basically is counting on him opening up the sun
Mm-hmm.
and being able to make Stormbreaker, and he's wrong. He's actually wrong because if Groot wasn't there to chop his hand off to actually create the weapon, Thor would not have been able to get it. That would have been GG. He would have just fizzled out on the star.
Hmm.
Um,
That is interesting.
but I do think that
Well, that's
that's
Groot. Oh, well, that's because of Peter Quill. I get where you're going with that. I was gonna say, well, that's Groot
yeah.
doing that, not Peter Quill, but Peter Quill is the leader, so you would give the credit to him.
I wouldn't give all the credit to him.
Not all the credit, absolutely not. But he's the one who brought them there. It's his ship.
Yeah, right. I'm saying yes, exactly. I'm saying like
so his
events,
role, they wouldn't have ended up there in that time.
That's what I
for
mean.
Thor.
That's
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean.
I
Like
get what you're saying.
events set in
Okay.
motion are because of Star-Lord, right? Like if he decided to go anywhere with his ship, Endgame would have looked a lot different. Infinity War would have looked a lot different. I mean, dog, honestly, like Thor being able to throw Stormbreaker and for it to hit Thanos like that, and for him to, stop him from doing anything else, right?
Yeah.
I can't give Thor all the credit. Like I have to give it to
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Groot and Star Lord in particuar. Yeah, he could
That
have
is
landed on
interesting
another
because
planet.
I really didn't think of any of that when thinking of Star Lord. Even after you told me
Yeah.
you picked Star Lord, I wasn't thinking any of that. But honestly, I still don't think that's as big as Captain Marvel.
Okay,
I
so
really
now what's
don't.
up with
Like,
Captain Marvel?
so the reasoning, because originally I was really sitting on Nick Fury. I'm like, Nick
Yeah.
Fury, he put together the Avengers. No. Okay, so I give it to Captain Marvel because literally she's the reason that Nick Fury ended up realizing there's more out there, putting that on his radar and making the Avengers initiative. So the
Yeah.
way I see it, that's because of her that even started the Avengers, that even started anything, even things that you're saying. Like, would Thor have showed up on Earth in the Avengers and things go to the same way if there were no Avengers? Would he be a part of that team? Would he ended up in the situation that he was to even be able to take Thanos out with
Uh-huh.
Stormbreaker? Like, the Avengers themselves were created because of Captain Marvel. And I feel like nothing's
Okay.
bigger than that, in my opinion. Nothing's bigger than that because that's literally the core of the MCU, and why anything happened at all from what we've seen is because of the Avengers. That's because of Captain Marvel. It's like, but it's weird because all the way leading up, I had it in my head everything was because of Captain America. You know what I mean? Like, he was the first Avenger. He was the first like
Wow.
superhero and all that. But then when we get this different story, because I was thinking Nick Fury started it because like he knew that Captain America had existed, and then he started to learn there was other super beings, but everything kind of linked back to Captain America, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna make a team, and then like he wants Captain America to be the leader. That's why they go and like they defrost him at that time
Yep.
and tell him what's going on. So I would like before Captain Marvel came out, I would have gave it to Captain America really, but because it was really associated with Captain Marvel and the events of that movie, I mean, I don't know if I can count this as giving it to her, but the events of Captain Marvel itself, like that put Earth on Ronan's radar. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It put Earth on a lot of their radar because the Tesseract was there.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So even the events of Captain Marvel, I'm not sure if that counts because it's not really specifically the character itself. I'm more talking about the movie when I say that. But the character herself, like, I think she is the reason the Avengers exist together, which
Yeah.
is what it was going to take. So I think Star-Lord is a good pick, but I don't think that's more important or bigger of a role than
Okay,
Captain Marvel
so
played.
so now I got to go out on a limb, right?
There goes that limb.
I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say, I'm actually I don't know the answer to this question. I only saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2 once.
I've seen it a few times.
Now, if Ego had his way, would the Avengers matter?
If Ego had his way,
Yeah.
well, that's a crazy question. You know, it depends what happens. Does Thanos still end up getting the Infinity stones, all 6? Does he end up getting it before Ego completely has his way? Like, taking everything out, like the timing of it, because I think Thanos would be. Oh man, because then we're talking about, well, can the Avengers and all them take on Ego and stop him from doing all of that? If, like, let's say he killed off Peter and the Guardians lose in that movie, and all that's left
Right.
is all the other Avengers. Now we're asking, well, can they take on Ego? Which I feel like they had to have in the comic books at some point. I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe.
But, like, I would imagine, if the
here's
Guardians
the
of
thing,
the
though.
Galaxy can take him out,
But here's the thing, though.
But now we're talking about
Well, when you say Guardians
circumstance,
of the
and that
Galaxy,
gets
it was
really
really because Quill
confusing.
had the powers,
Mhm.
But here's the thing. See, the Avengers knew Thanos was coming, and they knew about the Power Stones. I mean, the Infinity Stones. Like
Well,
they
did
had.
they all know They didn't really know Thanos was coming.
Well,
Tony knew there was an imminent threat, but they didn't specifically know Thanos had done it until Infinity War.
Yeah, right. Okay, I shouldn't say Thanos in particular. Well, although Iron Man kind of. No, not even. No, not
he
Thanos in particular.
A threat of that level.
Yes, exactly.
Basically,
They knew that something was going to show up. That and
Okay.
it had to do with the Infinity Stones.
Mhm.
And if it weren't, I mean, imagine Thanos.
And even
this
then,
is kind of
they
like
all didn't understand that either. It was pretty much just Thor after he has that nightmare and he takes off. That's what he's really trying to figure out. Because I still wouldn't say the Avengers were in no way prepared for something that big. Tony suspected it. Thor was suspecting it because of that dream he had in Age of Ultron. Then he took off. But the Avengers, they didn't see anything like that coming.
No, I can't say nothing like that. But what I'm saying is, I think the difference is, I mean, okay, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that they caught on right before the shit hit the fan. Like right before shit hit the fan. And Doctor Strange, or what's his name, was explaining everything to Tony Stark, and Hulk was explaining, what he saw. Thor had a clue. There was some bit of, preparation.
Right, but that's what I was saying. In Infinity War, that's when everyone started getting on that page.
And that was right before
20-something movies leading up to that where nobody
nobody knew.
Right,
where nobody knew. So that was right before the shit hit the fan.
Yeah, they were starting to.
But here's the thing: the full force of Thanos didn't just come out of nowhere. So in other words, what I mean is Thanos did not get all of the Infinity Stones from out the abyss and just showed up with everything. See, if you take it and you compare it to Ego doesn't need anything. Like tomorrow, Ego could do that. He could start to destroy the universe, and no one is. I mean, someone in one part of the galaxy would have no idea what's going on in comparison to the other side of the galaxy. It's not something that was told to somebody else. It's not like Ego needs to collect X, Y, and Z in order to do this. It's not like there's a hunt or a chase or a fight.
Ultimate goal? It was just to take over every planet so that, like, he was in control, right? That's what his plan was.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I'm trying to remember.
It seemed like he was killing people with the blob or something. Remember that?
Yeah, he was taking over the planets. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know why you would want to do that.
I feel like the Avengers could figure that out. I mean, if they figured out the Thanos situation, hell, they might have ended up going through time.
Yeah, they might have. But here's
and going to help Peter.
Well, I think this is the big difference, right? Like I'm saying, if Thanos had all of the stones, I don't think, and the Avengers did not see it coming. Like tomorrow, Thanos came out of nowhere and had all the stones. I don't think they've been able to stop him. And it depends obviously on what Thanos, huh?
Well, they weren't able to stop him.
I think, and this is where it gets tricky.
They lost.
Well, here's the thing. It's hard to say, right? Well, I mean, yeah, they lost in Infinity War, but when Thor hit him with the axe, it seemed as though Thanos left because he knew that Thor was too much. So he teleports himself away, right? But imagine none of that happened. Like, none of it happened. Like, Thanos woke up one day and slipped on an entirely loaded Infinity Gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones on it. Right? And
Okay.
he was like, I'm going to deliberately get rid of all of the Avengers. I mean, what he would have been able to do at that moment probably would have been different than at the moment
Well,
that
he
he
would
gets
have to
hit with
change his whole
Stormbreaker.
standpoint, really.
Huh?
You know what I mean? He would have to change his whole his main goal was to just take out half. And you're saying, like, what if he decided to just take out the Avengers? But what's causing him to think that?
Right, that's the
If we
thing.
take that road,
What
he would just have to do that. I don't think he would. I think he would. Thanos would have stayed on the same thing all the way through and still dumbly, stupidly, not taking out the Avengers when he took out half the universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now we have to be like, oh, well, what if he did that? It's like, okay, but that's not like a causality of what
Yeah, no, right.
of
Yeah,
your
no.
pick, really. You know
Yeah,
what
you
I'm saying?
can't really use that.
Like, what if? Yes, like I see what you're saying, but he would. Why would Thanos all of a sudden change his whole
Right, why
thing? Like, I got to take the Avengers out specifically. Make
Right.
sure I do that when I do it all. You know
Right,
what I mean?
it's too
like,
big
no,
of a
take out
decision.
ego while you're doing it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know though. I don't know. Like who if the Guardians weren't there. Okay, so we'll break it down to this, right? If the Guardians of the Galaxy weren't there and Ego had his way, seemingly out of nowhere, versus what happened in Infinity War, what would have been the better outcome? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that can be so heavily put on Quill's shoulders for that. You know what I mean? Like, would it all be doomed because Quill wasn't around for, everything from Infinity War? I really don't think so. I think the Avengers would have figured that out. And
After
then
Infinity
relating
War?
back to my pick, yeah, after Infinity, like if Peter Quill wasn't involved, I still think the Avengers would have eventually figured it out and won.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
I
the
don't
time
no.
thing.
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because Thor would not have been able to get Stormbreaker.
And that's fine. You can still go back in time. That doesn't affect the fact that they could have went back in time and did exactly what they did, even if the events with Thor and Stormbreaker happened. Like, why does that change what the Avengers end up doing in Endgame? It really doesn't. I mean, Thor was useless in Endgame, and what he did actually didn't fucking matter all through Endgame. You know what I mean? He was just sad about it the whole time, but the Avengers still could have went back in time.
Right. No, I didn't mean
in
an Endgame.
Really the same way.
Yeah, right. I don't mean an Endgame. I mean an Infinity War. Thor and Infinity War.
Like, okay, fine, but they would have lost anyway.
Right.
So it's like, okay, Thor got to do that. He got the help for a little bit, but they still lost. So we're still getting to the same endpoint. They will lose in Infinity War.
Yeah,
and
right.
Endgame doesn't have anything to do with really how they lost because it's a new way that they figured out to win. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You're saying Thanos would have snapped the gauntlet regardless if Thor was there.
Regardless.
Right.
In fact, he would have did it sooner.
Right.
I mean? Thor just delayed that by like 45 seconds.
Right, because he still messed up. He still failed.
Right. So I still think Endgame still would have happened. And again, the day wouldn't have been won without the Avengers that were created because Nick Fury decided to create the Avengers because of Captain Marvel.
Right,
so
okay.
it just all stems back. Like, to me, that's a bigger impact. That really is.
No, that makes sense.
The Avengers would still be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. But
what you're saying, Peter Quill has a huge influence. Yeah, but that doesn't influence the whole MCU on the grand scale like that. Like, Captain Marvel's the reason for the Avengers.
Right. I mean, okay. So essentially, yeah, right. I mean, if who impacted the MCU the most, it can't be Quill. But here's the thing though, I can't hit what he did with Ego and Guardians 2 obviously had a huge impact on the MCU, even if it wasn't as much as what his impact was with Thor and everything. But
which is huge. And what you're saying, it's like, okay, Infinity War would have been a very different movie. All right.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
but
that would have been different.
Okay.
But Endgame still would have happened.
But here's the thing. Let's fuck my argument for Infinity War. Right. Let's fuck that. I think the Captain Marvel point defeats any point that I can conjure up about Star-Lord and affecting Infinity War and Endgame in that way. But just focusing on Ego, that's the only limb I have to stand on. It's the only leg I have to stand on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm just saying if Ego
it depends how much Ego ended up doing after that. Let's say he killed Peter Quill in the Guardians. What happens from there? Well, then we have 5 Avengers movies, because then either Thanos has to deal with that or the Avengers have to somehow deal with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the question really stands: what happened? What does Ego do from there, and how much of a problem does it become? That even fall, because I mean the galaxy's fucking huge too. Does it even fall on the Avengers' radar anytime soon?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, Earth is on Ego's radar. Maybe that's in his plans. Of course, you know, he was there.
Yeah.
But
right, but that's even more dangerous though. Just the fact that the galaxy could be slowly eaten away and it's not even on the Avengers' radar. You know, like imagine they were on it. They'd be able to solve it quicker. But still, I don't know. It's not.
It really depends. Because you could have a scenario where the Ego thing is a huge fucking problem and they're not prepared for it, and it's a dark ass comic where we all lose. You know, that's another thing with like Marvel debates. For a lot of it has a lot of circumstances in it, just because things can turn out completely different. So we have to really just try to base it off what we know and what we're specifically talking about. If we're talking about a comic book, in our situation, we're talking about the MCU.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we can throw circumstance in it, but that changes. I mean, circumstance can change either one of our picks for a debate to be the winner, kind of. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, okay, well, but if this happened, or this has happened in an iteration of a comic, it's so grand. There's so many different things. It's like,
yeah.
So once you start throwing different circumstances in it, it's like, all right, well, yes, but
well, it's
no.
not okay. Yeah, there's a problem with throwing different circumstances in there. Like, you know, there's certain what ifs that are not valid. Like I presented a what if earlier that is not a valid what if. But I'm just saying, if you continue with what a character says they're going to do, right? So if a character says they're going to kill somebody and then someone stops them, it is completely valid to say, what if that person didn't stop them? You know, that is a valid circumstance to make. That's the circumstance that you're making with Captain Marvel. Essentially, if Captain Marvel didn't exist, then you wouldn't have the Avengers. So you know, you have to continue with the logic. And so I'd say, I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to say Captain Marvel because the Avengers wouldn't have existed had it not been for her, and then part of me wants to say,
I feel like you can't beat that.
well, but then
just feel like,
then part of me wants to say, if Ego had his way, what would be left of the universe, right? And maybe
it would have ended, but is that as big as all the movies that came before? The MCU, like, we still would have got the Avengers movies. They would have dealt with their villains. It just, if Ego got his way and won, then the MCU would have ended a lot sooner. Is that huge? Yeah, but being what started the MCU, basically, and the Avengers and the backbone of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's Captain Marvel.
Okay, so essentially, because I think I'm tying off into a different section. So the original question was, what character affected the MCU the most? And
yes.
but here's the thing. Here's the contingent, right? There's a nuance to it.
Mm-hmm.
What character affected the MCU the most, given the MCU turned out the way that it did?
Okay.
Right? That would be Captain Marvel. Right?
Yeah.
Now if you say, I'm thinking of it more like, who affected the MCU if they failed?
I feel like that's a different question.
It is a different question. It is a different question.
Because the question is specifically who affected the MCU.
Well, it's
of what we got. Who affected
not what could have happened.
Most. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's what my mind jumped, even though I'm the one who asked you the fucking question, my mind jumped to what would happen if something happened, like how
That
you
would change
affected
the
the
question
universe,
completely. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's not what we got, it's what could have been if X had
Yeah.
continued.
And that's a completely different question. That's actually a
It
completely
is.
different question.
It is.
Like if you would have asked me, okay, who would affect the MCU the greatest if Ego got his way? It's like, okay, that's a completely different question. But you just asked who affected the MCU the most.
Right.
And
well, I think
I gotta give that to Captain Marvel. I mean, you might have branched off in that,
Well, here's the thing.
Like,
I think
you didn't tell me that.
I think the question is too vague. I think I asked a question that's too vague. That question could be interpreted more than one way. Like who affected the MCU the most? And I'm saying, well, Star-Lord because he stopped Ego, and then but it's like, okay, but that like the actual events that literally occurred in the MCU, who affected them? It's like, okay, Captain Marvel because she started the Avengers,
Thought that way, but I think most people, if that question was asked, they would think of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, yeah, but you can't say that most people would interpret that question in that manner.
I think most would. I don't think most would be like, "Oh, let me interpret that if it was how would the MCU be affected differently if this happened?" I think most people would be like, "Oh, that person's asking who had the biggest effect on the MCU that we've seen." I don't think people would start branching off and be like, "Oh, well, he must mean who had the biggest effect if this happened." I don't think most people would go to that. I don't think most people would think, okay, the MCU, that's a specific thing. That's the movies. The MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who had the biggest effect on it.
But you certainly can affect it in a way that you don't see.
You could, yeah.
And that's essentially that is a completely valid interpretation of the question. I think we have two different interpretations of the questions, but I can't necessarily say that either one of them is far off from what people would assume.
Really, I think it's a different question. What you're asking.
No. I'm not saying it's a different question.
I'm
saying
different answer.
I'm saying you're saying that most people would interpret it in this way, and I'm not sure about that, but
I don't know. I took it more direct as like, I don't know. How do I say it without sounding like a dickhead? The way you said it, but I just took it direct. MCU, who had the biggest effect on it?
Yeah, well, that's how you interpret it.
All you had to add was if things ended differently, and then it's a completely different question, which is what you added.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's a completely different question. I think you can ask the same question. We're just interpreting the question differently. That's the only discrepancy that we have. That it's not. I could have asked a more specific. I could have worded it in a more specific way so it wasn't as vague, but.
Yeah, if you asked me who had the biggest effect on the Spider-Man movies, I would take that as who had the biggest effect on the 3 Spider-Man movies that we got, with Tobey Maguire, who had the biggest effect on those movies. I would think who had the biggest effect on those movies the way they turned out. But I mean, from what you're saying, there could be different aspects. My mind would just go directly to that. You know what I mean? So maybe maybe you're right. Maybe other people would think of it differently, if Doc Ock fucking won or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
there's different variations. But.
Yeah. Who if Spider-Man I don't know. Yeah, that's a hard one to
It's weird. That's the way I took it. I thought of the MCU so specifically to just the movies, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, the MCU is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is the 24, 25, whatever movies that we got.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the effects of everything that did happen, which I get what you're saying. You could think about the universe more in itself than specifically the movies.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, so that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, and I mean, even with that, we're thinking, I mean, who affected the Spider-Man trilogy the most? Well, Spider-Man, right? Because if it weren't for Spider-Man, the villains would have had their way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to. I mean, I don't know who else I'd pick other than Spider-Man. Okay, so with that logic though, that's how I'm ending up with Quill. With that logic, that's how I'm ending up with Quill. It's not.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's not a radical idea. People jump to some superhero.
Yeah. All right, we're out
Um,
of time. But so I won, though, right?
yeah, I mean,
Absolutely not.
no, I concede. I can't present a better counter argument to Captain Marvel. Well, no, actually, no, not even though. I wouldn't say that. No, God damn it, I still have a stake in this. I don't know. I don't know if we. I don't know. It's complicated because I think it is legitimate. I mean, if Quill and the Guardians stopped Ego, that's a big deal. Just as much
Again,
as Captain
but it
Marvel
also
starting
falls
the
to so
Avengers.
many different circumstances. I feel like a lot of what you can debate with be like, yeah, but then this could have happened or that could have happened.
Well, yeah, but Josh, you're
And
doing
it's
the
like,
same thing. So okay, but you're saying that if Captain Marvel didn't exist, then this would have happened instead. I mean, that is pretty much the predication of your argument. That you can't have an argument any other way.
Well, I'm not talking about if she didn't exist. I'm just saying the fact that she did exist caused this. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying anything if Captain Marvel didn't exist. I didn't use that at any point.
Right, but
I'm just saying because she existed, she created, like, she's the reason that Nick Fury ended up making the Avengers. That's facts. We've seen that. There's
right,
literally
but you
you
can't.
know what I mean? So
They're
she's
always
direct as to why the Avengers were created in the MCU that we've seen.
right, but anytime you have something that's constant, it's always in juxtaposition to what could have also have happened. Does that make sense? So
Okay.
like anything you could have possibly have said can only have been done if it were done the way it was, right? So no matter,
Right.
I mean,
but that's what I'm basing all my information off.
and that's what
everything that I've seen. This is who had the biggest role in the MCU.
right. Yeah,
I'm literally basing it off what I did see, not what I'm not thinking. Maybe I should. I'm not thinking about the universe that grand. I'm thinking specifically MCU movies. What did we see out of what I saw? Who had the biggest impact? That's my pick.
Right,
Now,
right. But I think actually
grand like that. I mean, maybe it would change.
I think you're okay. I think you're thinking of it like the way that everything played out. Well, no, I think you're. It's almost like you're ignoring the consequences of failure, which I don't think we can do. Like we certainly cannot say that things happen.
No, and I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. Like I was getting down with, well, what if Ego had his way? I'm like, that would be huge. That would be huge. But I don't think that's bigger than the Avengers being created.
Right, and so that's what I'm saying. I think you and I disagree on that. I think you and I disagree on that because I don't know if the Avengers would have been able to survive Ego, how they survived Thanos.
Maybe not.
I don't know, and so I can't. Yeah. That's I think where
I would assume they would. Again, that circumstance. I would assume the Avengers, like if Ego ended up being the big bad. If we're talking about the MCU, I doubt they're gonna lose at the end of it. So I would assume they would figure out, but again, it's all circumstance. Like maybe they would have lost.
Right.
Fucking maybe.
I don't know because I mean, again, it's circumstance to say what if Thanos said, "Hey, I'm going to snap away the Avengers," as opposed to snapping away half the universe. Right. Well, then the Avengers would have lost.
Would have been a lot different. Yeah, and I would have had a different MCU to really jump off of.
Right.
You know what I mean? It would
right.
have been different.
So I think that's relevant in the conversation as well. I think if the Guardians didn't stop Ego and Ego got his way, it all comes down to your faith in the Avengers saving the day against Ego coming out of nowhere and destroying.
Which nothing has proven me really wrong so far. I maybe it's cheating to say it's the MCU and Kevin Feige's not going to end it like that.
Oh yeah, of course, right,
right. One's gonna assume we're gonna watch a superhero movie and they're gonna fucking figure it out.
Right. No, but we have to. That's what I'm saying.
Real life.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
If we get out of the mindset that this was a movie and we get it and we take it for real, like for real, then that's
Yeah, but then we start finding flaws in fucking everything. Like, would the Avengers have made it past Ultron? You know what I
Oh, I
mean?
mean, yeah, I mean, you could find flaws in everything, but
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
you
But
can't
if
go
you
back.
once you start applying that logic, well, this would have happened if it was really gonna be happening and it wasn't
No,
a
no, no.
movie.
I
If you
don't mean
apply
in a
that too much,
I don't mean in a realistic sense. I mean like
mm,
we have to act as though the events that happened in the MCU happened on their own accord, not because someone in a cubicle wrote it, right? So
yeah, and that's
therefore
unpredictable.
huh,
That's too unpredictable. It's not even a world we can play in. You know what I mean?
well, it certainly is a world we can play in. Why not?
Because we don't know. Like, you could say, "What Eagle would have did this?" Okay, am I gonna take Darren's word for that, or like,
Well, I'm
is
saying
it written
if
in a comic? It's like, what are we judging that off of?
I'm saying if a character says that they're going to kill this person, then we have
Mm-hmm.
every right to believe that they're going to kill this person
Yeah,
unless someone stops them. Right. So
yeah,
it's not that.
and but you can have a circumstance. Well, this person could show up and do this, and it's like I feel like that's really unpredictable. Once we start being like, okay, so this person said they were gonna do that. I mean, one could assume that they're gonna do it, but we don't we don't know. Like, we have to have something to really work with.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that makes complete sense though. I mean, some of them are far-fetched. Some of them are
Mm-hmm.
far-fetched and they're not valid, but I think some of them are definitely valid. I mean, if Thanos says to the camera that he's going to snap away the Avengers, we have every right to believe that he's going to do so. And if
Yeah.
someone showed up to stop him and they did, I mean, it's you know, I mean, okay, let's take this for example. During the movie, and Thor is talking about Stormbreaker, right? Like in Infinity War before he gets it. The way he talks about it makes it seem like it's so powerful it's going to stop Thanos. It's not
Mm-hmm.
unpredictable or bizarre for the audience to
Yeah.
guess that Stormbreaker will actually
Yeah.
stop Thanos. You see what I'm
And
saying?
that's a guess. That yeah, and yeah, I'm not saying like anything that we come up with can't be valid, but we just don't know. You know, it's like, oh, but this could have happened. Yeah, that could have happened. But then I could say something that also could have happened that could like retcon what you said, and it's like, yeah, that
Right.
also could have happened. We're dealing. I feel like it's very unpredictable to deal with stuff like that. Like, we could have like a debate, like, okay, this could have happened, and kept going on woulda couldas. You know what I mean? But I feel like it's a little bit easier to really focus on what we have to work
Right, right,
with. If that makes sense.
but again, if you look at it through the lens of it operates itself in a realistic style of way, what we have is only one of those what if scenarios coming true. And you
I
can
don't know
again,
if it'd be one though. I feel like there could be more that would make sense that we could definitely come up with.
no, no, I
You know
mean,
what I'm
but
saying?
I'm saying what we got in the movies is
Hmm.
essentially one of those what if scenarios. You
You
see
think
what I'm
so?
saying? Does that make sense?
I think I know what you're saying, but I feel like that's wrong.
So okay,
You know
so
what I
if
mean?
you have a timeline, if you have a timeline that runs in a certain frequency, right, or dimension, or however they describe it,
Hmm.
you jump to another one, it's a different what if scenario.
Yeah. So there's different ones though. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It's
I
so
thought you were saying like there's only one way it could go based off what we have, but that wouldn't be true.
what I'm saying is the movies gave us this is what happened during this
Hmm.
time for sure, but
Yeah.
that has to be juxtaposed to what could have happened. It has to be. It can't
Okay.
exist independently. If you're looking at it like a realistic standpoint, like in real life, it could not have existed
Right.
independently.
Okay. So I know what you're saying. So yeah, I agree with that, and I
So
feel
the
like
so
that's
the
what we really got to work with,
right,
though.
right.
You
So
know
so
what I mean?
you can definitely predict what is going to happen next with a good amount of certainty. Like for example, I know that if I drop this, it will fall to the ground because I've done it 1,000 times. Like so, I know that if Thor gets in a fist fight with some guy at a bar, I know what's going to happen, right? Like it's not.
Yeah.
It might have not have actually happened. Might have not actually seen it, but it's not like it isn't valid, you know.
Right.
And again,
Yeah.
but here's the thing, though. I think what you're trying to say, Josh. I think what you're trying to say is this. I think what you're trying to say is what actually occurred and what we actually saw is more valid on the merit that it actually occurred than anything that didn't actually occur on screen.
Yes, that is what I'm saying, because that's the idea I got when we start talking about the MCU. I
Right,
just thought,
right.
okay, out of what happened.
And okay, and so I don't have a counter for that really, because if you just take that in real life, that's pretty much, that's pretty legitimate. I am just saying, obviously, what could have happened is
in the Marvel universe, I feel like even would have been better.
Yeah, I'm saying what could have happened is, in my opinion, um, damn near just as valid. And you can't have one without the other. And so I don't know if Star Lord and the Guardians
So
didn't stop Ego.
And doing what could have, I think that would have changed my answer. So I think if anything we learned from this, maybe we should try to be more specific. Maybe
No, I don't
niche
think.
it down a little more.
I think we got it down. I think we got it down.
If we have two different understandings of what the question is, of course we're gonna have different answers.
Right. But no,
I
think
because then you're saying in my train of thought you would agree with Captain Marvel.
I'm saying no. That's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying no. I'm saying I'm kind of stuck because when you said that you had won, and I was like, yeah, and then I was like, well, wait, not really, because I'm actually battling the idea that what if Ego won and Star Lord and the Guardians actually stopped him, or didn't stop him,
which is a different understanding of the question though than I had.
I think it's a. It might be a slight
about what could have.
The way we're interpreting it might be a slightly different, but I don't think that it's that far off. I don't think it's that far off. I think they're both within the ballpark. I think there's people that'll agree with you, and there's people that'll agree with me. I think that it's completely legitimate to say that Captain Marvel affected the MCU the most because she's the reason why the Avengers exist, just as much as it is to say the Guardians and Star-Lord.
Right. But what I'm saying is, if I started thinking about it the way you're thinking about it, I don't know if I would have the same answer because I didn't factor that in.
Well,
you know what I'm saying.
Okay, well, factor it in, though.
What?
Okay, so but you're saying if you
going on out there.
You're saying if you didn't factor it in, so you can factor it in then.
Yeah, I could, but then I think I might change my answer. I'm not sure if Captain Marvel still would have been my end answer if I started thinking about the question like that. You know what I mean? Because I thought of the question so fucking specific the way I did. It's the reason I got my answer.
Yeah, but that's valid though. Your answer is completely valid, even though you thought of it.
If I start thinking if things change and if things change because of this happened, I don't know if I still would have picked Captain Marvel. Is what I'm saying.
Right? Yeah,
I'm not sure.
But no, I feel like
change it.
I feel like it's
I feel like that would change my answer. I don't know if I'd still. I really would have to think about that. Because now what you're saying, I'm like, okay, then Peter Quill is a fucking pretty big one. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think he is a big one.
I didn't think about that. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't think about it like that.
That's fair, though.
Well, maybe that's just my fault. Anyway, we're way the fuck
That's
out
what
of
I'm
time,
saying. That's completely fair.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever. But
yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's all we got fucking today on the Power Button Podcast. We're changing our name. We're changing our intro. Changing a lot of shit. This background might be what we're using. Comment. Tell me if you like it. Comment anything. Fucking hit the like button. Y'all don't do that shit either.
Yeah.
Wild. Should have liked. Be sure to subscribe. Text us every Friday. And until next time.
Peace out. Oh, shit.
Did you say it? Did you say motherfuckers?
No, I didn't say it. I was thinking about not saying it, you know?